Most people are not stuck because life is too hard. They are stuck because they keep waiting. Waiting for confidence, waiting for support, waiting for the perfect time. And while they wait, life quietly moves forward without them. You probably know this feeling too. There is something you want to do, something you dream about almost every night. But every time you think about starting, fear enters your mind. What if I fail? What if people laugh at me? What if I am not good enough? So instead of starting, you delay. One more day, one more week, one more year. And slowly the hardest thing is not failure anymore. It becomes regret. My name is Wali, and today's story is about a boy who spent most of his life waiting for the perfect beginning, until one simple moment changed everything. There was a boy named Ayaan. He lived in a small village surrounded by fields, dusty roads, and old mud houses. Most people there spent their entire lives doing the same thing every day. Wake up early, work in the fields, earn enough to survive, sleep tired, and repeat. Ayaan's father was a farmer, rough hands, old clothes, but he never complained. Ayaan respected his father deeply, but he was also afraid. Afraid that his own life would become exactly the same. Not because farming was bad, but because he felt something inside him calling for more. Every evening he would sit near the river and think about his future. He wanted to build something meaningful. He wanted a life bigger than fear and routine. But Ayaan was always scared to begin anything. If he wanted to learn something new, he would overthink. If he tried and failed once, he would immediately give up. And because of that, most of his dreams stayed inside his mind. One afternoon, while working in the fields, Ayaan noticed an old man pushing a heavy wooden cart through a rough, muddy road. The wheels kept getting stuck. The old man would push hard, move a little, stop, breathe, then push again. Ayaan walked toward him. "Why are you carrying all this alone? This road is too difficult." The old man smiled. "Yes, the road is difficult. Then why not wait until someone helps you?" The old man stopped, then looked directly into Ayaan's eyes. "If I waited for perfect conditions, this cart would never move." That one sentence stayed in Ayaan's mind the entire day. That night, he could not sleep. Maybe that was exactly what he was doing with his life. Waiting to feel ready, waiting for certainty, waiting for fear to disappear. But maybe life never gives certainty first. Maybe movement comes first. The next morning, Ayaan asked his father something unusual. "When you first started farming, were you confident?" His father laughed softly. "Confident? No." "Then how did you learn?" His father placed a hand on his shoulder. "By waiting to feel ready, waiting for certainty, waiting for fear to disappear. But maybe life never gives certainty first. Maybe movement comes first. The next morning, Ayaan asked his father something unusual. "When you first started farming, were you confident?" His father laughed softly. "Confident? No." "Then how did you learn?" His father placed a hand on his shoulder. "By working badly at first." He continued, "The first time I planted crops alone, many of them died. The first time I sold in the market, people tricked me." Then he smiled. "But if I had stopped because of those mistakes, we would not even have this house today." That hit Ayaan deeply. Every person he respected had once been inexperienced. Every skilled person had once been terrible. The difference was simple. They continued. A few days later, Ayaan decided to learn woodworking from the village carpenter. He had admired his work for years, but never had the courage to ask. This time he went. His hands were shaking. "Can you teach me woodworking?" "Do you have experience?" "No." "Do you know how to use tools?" "No." "Then why do you want to learn?" Ayaan hesitated, then said honestly, "Because I am tired of being afraid to start." The carpenter stared quietly, then smiled. "Come tomorrow morning." That night, Ayaan felt both excited and terrified. His mind kept creating excuses. But the next morning, he still showed up. And honestly, he was terrible. He cut wood unevenly, dropped tools, made countless mistakes. One day, he accidentally ruined a wooden chair the carpenter had been building for hours. He expected anger. Instead, the carpenter said calmly, "Good. Now you will remember this mistake forever." Ayaan looked confused. People who are too afraid to make mistakes never learn anything valuable. Weeks passed, then months. Slowly, Ayaan improved. His hands became steadier. His cuts became cleaner. His confidence grew. But the biggest change was not his skill. It was his mindset. He stopped expecting instant success. He started respecting slow progress. One evening, he asked the carpenter, "How do people become great at something?" The carpenter picked up a small piece of smooth wood. This became smooth because it was cut, shaped, and polished many times. Without pressure, it would still be rough. Then he looked at Ayaan. Life works the same way. Difficulties shape people. That night, walking home, Ayaan realized something painful. For years, he had been avoiding discomfort, but discomfort was exactly the thing that could have helped him grow. Years later, Ayaan became one of the most respected craftsmen in the nearby villages. People traveled far to buy his handmade furniture. But what made him truly respected was not his skill. It was his story. People knew he started with nothing. No talent, no confidence, no perfect beginning. Just the willingness to begin badly. One afternoon, a young boy visited his workshop. "How did you become successful?" Ayaan looked at the unfinished table in front of him. "I stopped waiting." The boy looked confused. Most people waste years waiting to feel ready. But readiness comes after starting, not before. When I first touched these tools, I had no idea what I was doing. But if I had waited to feel confident first, I would still be standing at the beginning. Life does not destroy most dreams overnight. It destroys them slowly, through delay, through excuses, through overthinking. A person keeps saying, "I will start tomorrow." Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next year. And one day they wake up realizing they spent years preparing for a moment that never came. You do not become ready and then start. You start and slowly become ready. A child learns to walk by falling. A farmer learns through failed crops. A craftsman learns through broken wood. Nobody skips the uncomfortable beginning. Growth is uncomfortable. Waking up early is uncomfortable. Trying again after failure is uncomfortable. Being a beginner is uncomfortable. But staying stuck forever is more painful than all of that. So wherever you are right now, do not wait for certainty. Start before you feel fully ready. Start while feeling nervous. Start while feeling afraid. Because courage does not mean fear disappears. Courage means you move despite fear. You discover your strength while moving. You discover your confidence while struggling.
And honestly, I want to share
the seed that refused to grow. Hook, what if the reason your life feels stuck is not because you lack talent, luck, or opportunity? What if the greatest thing holding you back is something invisible, a belief you have carried for years? And what if one small lesson from nature could completely change the way you see yourself forever? Most people spend their lives comparing themselves to others. They look around and see someone richer, smarter, stronger, more successful, or more confident. And slowly, without realizing it, they begin to believe a dangerous lie. Maybe I'm not enough. Once that belief takes root, it becomes difficult to dream, difficult to try, difficult to believe that anything meaningful is possible. You stop because you assume success belongs to other people, not you. My name is Wali, and today's story is about a small seed that believed it was worthless until life taught it a lesson that changed everything. In a beautiful valley surrounded by mountains stood a large garden. The garden was famous throughout the region. Every season it produced colorful flowers, tall trees, sweet fruits, and green plants. Visitors often came from distant villages just to admire its beauty. Deep beneath the soil of this garden lay hundreds of seeds waiting for their time to grow. Among them was one tiny seed named Nilo. Nilo was smaller than most of the other seeds. Every day he listened to the conversations around him. One seed dreamed of becoming a giant oak tree. Another hoped to become a rose admired by everyone. Others talked about growing tall and attracting attention. The more Nilo listened, the more discouraged he became. He looked at himself and thought, I am too small. I am too ordinary. I will never become anything important. So while the other seeds waited eagerly for their chance to grow, Nilo remained silent. One morning, spring arrived. Warm sunlight touched the earth. Gentle rain soaked the soil. The gardener smiled. It is time. One by one, the seeds began growing. Roots stretched downward. Green shoots pushed upward. The garden slowly came alive, but Nilo did nothing. He stayed hidden underground. Fear held him in place. Days passed, then weeks. The seeds around him continued growing. Some became flowers, some became bushes, some became young trees. Nilo watched from below. Every new success made him feel worse. Look at them, he thought. They are becoming something beautiful. I would only fail. So he remained buried, safe, invisible, unchanged. One evening, an old earthworm crawled nearby. The worm noticed Nilo sitting alone. Why have you not started growing? Asked the worm. Nilo sighed. Because I am not special. The worm laughed softly. Who told you that? Nilo hesitated. No one. Then why do you believe it? Nilo had no answer. The earthworm continued. For many years I have lived beneath this garden. I have seen thousands of seeds. Some became flowers. Some became fruit trees. Some became herbs. Some became vines. But do you know what they all had in common? What? Nilo asked. They all started before they knew what they would become. Nilo remained quiet. The worm smiled and crawled away. But those words stayed in Nilo's mind. That night, Nilo could not stop thinking. Maybe he had spent so much time worrying about becoming something impressive that he never gave himself permission to become anything at all. For the first time, he wondered, what if growth comes before confidence? The next morning, Nilo made a decision. It was small, almost invisible, but it changed everything. He stretched a tiny root into the soil, that was all. Nothing dramatic happened. No applause, no celebration, no instant success. Just one tiny step. The following day, he stretched a little farther, then farther again. Slowly, he began growing. At first, it was difficult. The soil felt heavy. The rocks blocked his path. Sometimes strong rain pushed him backward. Sometimes insects damaged his roots. More than once, he considered giving up. But every challenge taught him something. Every obstacle made him stronger. And little by little, he continued. Months passed. One bright morning, Nilo finally broke through the surface. For the first time, he saw the sky. Blue. Endless. Beautiful. The sight filled him with joy. He realized how much of life he had missed while hiding underground. Years went by. The garden continued changing. Flowers bloomed and disappeared. Plants came and went. Trees grew taller. And Nilo? He kept growing too. Not into a giant oak, not into a famous rose, not into anything he had imagined. Instead, he became a strong apple tree. Every season he provided shade for travelers. Birds built nests in his branches. Children played beneath him. Families gathered around him. And each autumn his branches filled with sweet fruit. People smiled because of him. Animals survived because of him. The garden became better because of him. One day, a young seed resting nearby looked up and asked, "How did you become so valuable?" Nilo looked at the fruit hanging from his branches and smiled. "I stopped asking whether I was good enough." The young seed looked confused. "What do you mean?" Nilo replied, "For years, I thought my value depended on becoming something extraordinary. But I was wrong. Value does not come from being bigger than everyone else. It comes from becoming what you were created to become." The young seed listened carefully. Nilo continued, "When I stayed underground comparing myself to others, nothing changed. When I finally started growing, I discovered my purpose. You cannot discover your potential by hiding from life. You discover it by participating in life." The truth is that many people are living exactly like Nilo once lived. They spend years comparing, years doubting, years waiting until they feel talented enough, confident enough, ready enough. But confidence rarely comes before action. It usually comes after. You begin uncertain, you learn, you struggle, you improve, and eventually you become the person you once wished you could be. Think about every successful person you admire. At some point, they were beginners. At some point, they felt insecure. At some point, they made mistakes. The difference is simple. They kept growing, while others stayed buried beneath fear. Remember this. A seed hidden underground looks insignificant, but inside that tiny seed exists an entire future tree. The problem is not that the seed lacks potential. The problem is that it often cannot see its own future. Neither can you. That is why faith matters. You must move before you can fully see where the path leads. So if you've been doubting yourself lately, listen carefully. You do not need to become someone else. You do not need to have all the answers. You do not need perfect confidence. You only need the courage to take the next small step. Because the greatest tragedy is not failing. The greatest tragedy is spending your entire life buried beneath the soil of fear, never discovering what you could have become. And who knows? The person you are meant to become may already be waiting inside you, just like the tree waiting inside the seed. The only question is, will you keep waiting, or will you finally start growing?